Hello, and welcome to Women in Business, where we interview entrepreneurs and senior managers and show you the strengths, successes, obstacles, and roadblocks women experience in business. Since I believe every person in business needs to be visible, I'd like to invite you to watch www.sob6, that's the number 6, tips.com, which will give you some valuable information should you get the call to be on radio or TV, which I think is extremely important. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at Gail Carson, that's Gayle, Gail Carson 13 at gmail.com, or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. My guest today is Jen Reiner. She is the president of Align Limited. Align is a strategy and innovation company that enables organizations to grow by improving their customer experience and addressing changing market trends. They specialize in helping leaders in mid-sized service organizations refresh how their organizations create value for stakeholders. And they enable organizations to adapt and grow by delivering more rewarding customer experiences. Welcome, Jen. How are you today?
I'm great, Gail. It's good to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we know what's going on in the world. So let me ask you my first question, which is, what are you seeing in terms of how businesses are adapting to the pandemic?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great timely question. So I feel like there's a variety of different camps, right? So not all businesses have been affected the same, but there's a couple common denominators that I think are really critical. And it ties back to something I think is really important, but so they've had to scramble, right? Their world was turned upside down. Either they got really busy or they had no business at all or something in between. At the end of the day, but because the pandemic really changed all sorts of things, they couldn't sit back and rely on their assumptions. They had to go talk to customers. So when I say there's two camps, I say there's a camp that kind of have stayed in the Band-Aid mode. They're hoping that things will come back to normal and they're just, trying to get through the current period. And then there's another camp that have said, this is kind of the discomfort that we needed to force us to try some new things. We have no other choice but to try some new things. And they're actually going for it. So I think the biggest theme that I've seen is that when leaders have some humility and they're willing to say, okay, we don't have an answer. Let's get curious and see where we can uncover some answers. When they go to their customers and they're getting curious about what's going on in their world and not taking things for granted and saying, tell us about what's different, that's been the big opportunity. When they've done that, a couple things have come out that folks are really interested in. Trust has been, that's not surprising, but trust has been a big deal. More open communications. And so as I sit back and do the lessons learned on projects I've worked on during the pandemic, the big aha for me and for my clients is that they were surprised by what customers really wanted. They thought it was going to be, a more technical solution or higher quality solution, but they were surprised. And so sometimes it's just the things that you took for granted as real, stepping back and talking to customers and figuring out what they really want.
Well, I have to say, I'm going to make some comments on what you said. I've been doing some future talks about the future because I'm not a futurist, but I follow them. And so I've been really watching what's going on. And there is no new normal. There is just new. There isn't anybody that's going back to what was or what was behind. We're going to experience another 6-7 months of this. We've already been told that there's going to be very few live meetings in 2021. We know that the vaccine is not going to really appear until the first quarter, maybe. possibly even second quarter before it gets distributed to everybody. And we know that people have got to make adjustments. My son sells real estate, and although he's selling homes, they can't finish them because they can't get the kitchen equipment and things like that. They're on back order for 3 months. So it's affecting everybody in all kinds of different ways. So I think as you're a entrepreneur and you profess business model innovation, you're going to have to hit some of your clients over the head because they're living in the dark ages. And the thing that customers and people have said is most important to them now is contact, human contact. And I mean, whether it's on Zoom or through the telephone or FaceTime or whatever, it doesn't have to be in person, but call your customers, call your past customers, call anybody that you'd like to do business with in the future, because that personal contact is having all the difference in the world. So now I'm going to ask you, are there sets of conditions that explains why some organizations are able to adapt and others are not?
Well, yeah, you know, there are conditions going into the pandemic that led to some companies being more adaptable than others. So first of all, let me say that if you had diverse revenue streams, you know, in hindsight, hey, that was a great idea. And people who diversify their revenue streams know that that's a way to minimize risk because, you know, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. So the other thing that did was just, it wasn't just about diverse revenue streams. It could have been about diverse customers, diverse ways of thinking. You know, all of that difference was one good thing. But the other really good thing is this DNA inside the organization that tolerates uncertainty and risk and change. And so the growth mindset, you know, I'm learning a lot more about you, Dr. Carson, and I know that you're an advocate for, you know, adapting and making the best of a bad situation, sort of learning. And that's a growth mindset. And that inside of organizations is the critical DNA for being entrepreneurial, taking risks, getting curious, trying new things. It's all about perspective taking and looking for the good opportunities. A couple other things that I think are some conditions, and then I'll come back to, you know, one real fundamental thing, but companies that have a great culture that really empower their teams are more innovative because the further up you go in the organization, the further away you get from day-to-day interaction with the customer, usually.
True, absolutely true. I agree with you then. Yeah.
The frontline folks are the ones that really see the customer experience,
and they're the ones that have very often doesn't even listen to them.
That's right. Amazing. So cultures that have great innovation have these, they have opportunities for everyone to have buy-in and everyone to have voice, and they're super intentional about listening inside the organization, but they also know that they have bias inside the organization, that they really are internal advocates for the solution they offer, right? That they love what they do, they love their product, at least they're biased towards it. And so that makes it really hard to see objectively through your customer's point of view, because, you know, you've been in the situation where you have something, the pandemic kind of brought this to light. We're stuck in our ways. We like what we're comfortable with, until suddenly that's ripped out from under us and we try something new. And then we realize, oh, you know, why wasn't I doing this so many years ago? Why did I stick with, you know, this certain way of solving that problem? Whether it's from the kind of coffee you like, you know, the way that you go to the gym, or the way that you do networking. We're
Well,
biased towards what we're comfortable with.
so what do you think has changed in terms of consumer expectations? Besides safety and remote access and all of that, how has the customer changed?
Yeah, so here's a couple interesting ones. Like you said before, people want connections. They want to feel like they're part of something bigger. They want to feel connected to other people. Well, we can't do that face to face, but there's an interesting business model method to do that, and it's peer-to-peer platforms. So, we're familiar with lots of them, ride sharing, Airbnb, but things like TripAdvisor, anytime that you're connecting groups of people to one another. So there's lots of organizations that have a base of customers, and they need to think differently about how they interact with those customers. And one of the things that they could do is connect those customers to one another. That's an interesting one. Another one is this idea of being able to do it yourself. So we're home. We saw it with like hair color, right? Men and women couldn't go out and get, some services. So they figured out how to do it themselves. We saw this interest in cooking because they couldn't go to restaurants. So DIY is another business model that really is an opportunity for businesses to think differently. How could we empower people to do some of the process themselves? So the meal kit industry wasn't born of the pandemic, but it represents the concept of DIY. Those are a couple. I mean, the idea of...
It's interesting that you talked about the meal kits, because I have ordered, because I don't cook, I have ordered from 5 different companies, and I've been disappointed in all of them. So what I did this past weekend was I went to I didn't go there, but I ordered online from my favorite restaurant, and I ordered a week's supply of food. And the way they make it is so generous, I could live for 2 weeks on it. And so far, I've been having a blast. It's so nice. It's so nice to eat stuff I love. So and I said to them, I said, are you doing okay? Because they really did a great business, but they were only open from 4 until 10 anyway. They weren't breakfast and lunch and dinner. It was strictly dinner, and they took 1 day off a week. And they said, yeah, things are going pretty good. I don't know if it's what it was, but when I was there, of course, it was a Sunday, there were 3 cars waiting while I was there picking up my stuff, which was horrendously large. I had to get a caddy to take it up to my apartment because there was so much stuff. But that's what's happening. In fact, a friend of mine who owns a restaurant started a takeout service, then started a bakery, which he didn't have before, and then started all kinds of different specials, and is doing more business than ever. So it really is a creative kind of thing. And with me, who travel 4 or 5 times a month to speak, I've been doing virtual presentations and a lot of conferences online, and I'm Zoomed to death. And it's just amazing. So it shows you, if you have to do it, you can figure out a way to do it. Not that I don't feel sorry for the gyms and for the bars and the restaurants that can't be at full capacity and don't have the ability to do takeout and things like that. So, you talk about a lean pilot. How would a company begin or prototype such a service?
Sure. I want to come back to one thing you said about sometimes places don't get it right. You mentioned, it just wasn't quite as good as you wanted. You also mentioned the restaurant industry. I feel bad for certain places. Well, I just want to say, I was talking to my neighbor this weekend, and he too has been trying to support restaurants, and said, most of them are doing it wrong. There's only a few that are really doing it right. And I probed a little bit, because that's what I do. I get curious about things and wanted to understand, tell me more about this customer experience. And ultimately, even though it was meeting his food needs, he was left with this emotional dissatisfaction, because they weren't they actually were treating him badly because he felt that they were resentful of the fact that he wasn't coming in and sitting down for a dine-in experience, that they were open. And he said, the places that are doing it well realize that people want takeout and they're trying to be the best that they can be at it. So they're being super courteous. They thought of all the conveniences. And I just bring this up because you can meet a need and miss the mark because you've left people emotionally feeling discouraged. But when you really focus on making people feel great and covering all the bases and doing all the extras, that's what wins. And that's part of, thinking differently. And part of why some companies are really doing well is because their world was turned upside down. They were forced to connect with customers and listen, and they figured out what they could do to get it right. And like I said, they weren't treating it as just a temporary situation Band-Aid. They were saying, let's go all in on how we reinvent, how we wow people. So that was the difference. Now, I'm happy to answer the question about pilots and prototypes. And here's why that's important, because we as humans want things, when we're taking a risk and we're trying something new, we want to work out all of the uncertainty. We want to work out all of the possible mistakes, and we're nervous and we don't want to fail. And we've got all this stuff going on. Well, I talk about a lean pilot because for two things, we need to move fast. We need to take action. And the best way to perfect something is to start with something that's imperfect. So you want to get customers' reaction to it. You want to put out your rough first draft, with the concept and get a sense of, do I have the right idea? If you're trying to invent something new, I'm going to give you an example. I was working with a preschool, and they were experimenting with some ideas, and we were exploring something new because there was a big question mark on whether kids would come back, whether parents would send their kids back to school on site. And we had an idea because we listened to parents and we recognized that they wanted to stay home with their kids. They wanted to experiment with homeschooling, but some of them couldn't work. Long story short, we said, well, how do we test this idea? We have an idea. How do we test it? Let's put some Facebook ads out. So the way you prototype a service is first you have to find out, what problem are you solving, and is it the right problem? Is it that they want a safer on-school environment, or is it that they want to stay home but they still want to have curriculum and they have to work, so they need somebody in their home? What problem to solve? So when you're prototyping a service, the first thing you're trying to figure out is, do we have a good idea, and can we get people to take action? So test marketing is the way to do that, just to figure out, do you know what problem you can solve for people? And so Facebook ads or Twitter ads or, webinars. I've been prototyping a service just by getting people on a Zoom call and showing them a flyer and say, talk to me about what you see. How could this solve a problem? Or what problem do you think could be solved by the solution that you see in this flyer?
But Jen, you're doing naturally is what people should be doing. What we found is that the people want that human contact. They want people to smile at them even behind a mask. They can tell with the eyes. They want people to talk to them. And I keep telling my clients, call your customers. Call the people you used to do business with. Call people that you want to do business with and talk to them. And that's what you're doing with, these test kinds of things. Some companies unfortunately don't have the time to do all these testings before they make a shift before they go out of business. But you're doing the right thing and you're contacting people. People can see you on Zoom. I am amazed. I've been, speaking at a lot of conferences, and whereas normally there might be 100 or 200 or 300 people at the conference, now there are 500 or 600 or 1,000 because they're global. Because everybody does not have to get on a plane and go somewhere. They can hook into their internet connection if they've got a good one, and be part of this conference. And it's become a global community. So what you're doing is smart, and hopefully your clients are listening to you and taking advantage of what you're telling them to do. Because I think that, uh, I just think it's important. So I'm going to ask you an important question here. What have you been able to uncover that was most surprising to people?
Well, like I said before, it's usually not what the person thinks. So
That I'm sure of, yeah.
they go like they are experts. And so they geek out over their stuff, whether you're in technology or early learning childcare, or you run a tourist site, you're a geek about your stuff. And so you think that what your customers want is more content or more technical expertise or more whiz bang. And it's not what they want. They want it probably to be more convenient. They want it to be simpler. They want to actually feel like they understand what's going on. So one of the interesting ones, working with a technology company, they really expected it to be about modern new whiz bang. What's the new technology? What should it be? Is it AI? Well, it was trust.
Yes.
It was communication and trust. And particularly with technology, there was frustration around, hey, this is too complicated. So we just needed to make it simpler and give these people confidence and develop the relationship. Show that it wasn't about the tech, that it was actually about the people.
Exactly right. Oh, I'm so glad you said that, Jen, because that's exactly what it's about. It's about the people. Well, we only got to have about 5 minutes left. So there's a couple things I want to do. First of all, I don't know if you have a gift for anybody, but if you do, you're certainly able to offer that to them. And how is the best way for people to reach you?
Sure. Well, yes, the gift. The gift, like a gold ring, right? I mine for gold. And the gold I'm looking for is inside the voice of the customer. So I'll just cut right to it. The gift that we give is insights by doing this voice of the customer snapshot. We understand that not everyone understands what customer insights are, what it means. And like I said before, the big reveal is that what's out there as that gold, that voice of the customer, is not what they think. They need to sort of flip their point of view. So we do this little demo, and we'll do a voice of the customer snapshot at no cost. We walk them through the process. We do the work. We interview about 5 or 6 of their clients or prospects or people who are not even customers. And then we'll give them a report and say, what's the voice of the customer and what should you do about it? How is this a business opportunity? That's our gift. It's just a demo of what insights would be for their audience. Now they can find us. And to answer your second question, they can go to align.com, alignltd.com to find it. So it's ALIGNLTD.com/VOC-snapshot. So it's voice of the customer snapshot. They'll find it off our homepage. That's our gift. And it's really like mining for gold, telling them what their clients really think.
Wow, that's fantastic. So remember, folks, where you have to go to get the information that Jen just shared with you. And her website is Align, ALIGN, LTD, that's for limited.com, alignlimited.com. Jen, this has really been fascinating. I think it's wonderful to know all about this. For us, I just want to remind you folks that you need to go to the YouTube and sign up for the Spunky Old Broad channel so that we get to see you on that as well. And, Jen, people like you are so important if your client will listen to you. So many times I know that people come up with all these grand ideas externally, and they don't want to hear what you have to say, but you've got your finger on the pulse of what's going on. So I think that's so important, and I can't emphasize it enough. So You know, it just makes such a big difference what you're doing. And so when we said that you are an expert on customer experience design and internal entrepreneurship and business model innovation, you have certainly proved that to us today because you've got a lot of things that you've offered to people. And I want to thank you for your participation because we need people like you so desperately. Is there any last minute words of wisdom? We have about a minute left that
Sure.
you would like to offer.
I think that the big thing here is that, as you've been saying, you've got to start with customers. And the hard thing is to be ready to hear the truth. And sometimes you are not able to get that through your sales team, and you need an objective outside third party to get you the truth. That's the insight. The big piece is that what everyone wants is how to turn insights into income. And that's the process I described earlier of moving quickly from gathering those insights, generating ideas, piloting them, and then getting that out there with test marketing and traction in the sales funnel. So I think what makes it different is it's end to end from insights and ideas to implementation and income. And that's what I'm really excited about when people do finally take action. We just make the process of generating new income much faster.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being our guest today, Jen. We enjoyed having you, and I'm sure our audience learned a great deal.
Thanks, Gail. This was really fun, and I was happy to connect with you. This was wonderful, and I'm glad to learn more about you as well and your customers.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Dr. Gail, and I wanted you to know I have a whole bunch of other things to offer you. If you go to spunkyoldbroad.com, you will see an array of SOB stuff for sale and all our latest products and additions. If you're interested in getting on TV, I have a brand new course, Get on TV. And if you want to start your own business, you'll want my SOB Guide to Business Success. I know you'll love them all. I guarantee it.